Namaskar, good afternoon. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I am Smriti Rastogi with the midday news. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. Ahead of his first foreign visit to Maldives and Sri Lanka, Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes a stopover at Kerala. Thanks people for the massive mandate in the Lok Sabha elections. Says committed to work for even those who did not vote for the BJP. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold bilateral talks with top leaders of Maldives and Sri Lanka during his first foreign visit beginning today. In a tweet, says visits indicate the importance of India's policy of neighborhood first. Disrupting Parliament is a clear negation of the vision of the constitutional makers, asserts Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu at 46th Annual Award Function at Hyderabad Management Association, expresses anguish over diminishing values and morals in public life. After a week's delay, monsoon finally makes landfall in Kerala. IMD predicts heavy rainfall in isolated places over Kerala, Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Forecasts heat wave conditions likely to continue in north and central India next week. And in tennis, Australia's Ashley Barty sets up a final clash with Czech player Marketa Vondrousova in the women's singles French Open. Novak Djokovic to clash with Dominic Thiem in the men's singles semi-finals today. Our top story this afternoon, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed BJP workers for the first time in Kerala after last month's Lok Sabha win a short while ago. Addressing the workers at Guruvayur, he thanked the people for the massive mandate given to the BJP and the NDA. He said that the elected leaders' mandate is to work for the development of each and every individual. Despite the results, BJP had not won a single seat from 20 Lok Sabha seats in the recently concluded elections. The Prime Minister also offered prayers at Guruvayur Temple in Thrissur district.
गुरुवायूर की इस पवित्र भूमि पर इतनी बड़ी तादाद में आप आए हैं, तब इस पवित्र भूमि से आज हम सब संकल्प करके चले, नकारात्मकता को छोड़े.
Meanwhile, today in the second day of the Congress, President Rahul Gandhi's three-day visit to Kerala. Rahul Gandhi conducted a roadshow in his constituency in Wayanad today. He also addressed the people and said that his party will work for every citizen of Wayanad. He also expressed his gratitude to his supporters in Kalpeta for choosing him to represent them in the parliament. This is Rahul Gandhi's first visit after winning from Wayanad in the Lok Sabha elections. The Congress president will hold road shows and meetings in Kalikavu, Nilambur, Idavanna and Arikode during the day.
My job is to listen to the people of Wayanad, understand their difficulties and work with them to improve their lives. My focus in the Lok Sabha will be raising the issues of the people of Wayanad, but as I am a MP from Kerala, I will also be raising issues that are of interest to the people of Kerala.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin his visit to Maldives and Sri Lanka today. This is his first visit abroad since assuming office for the second term. In a pre-departure statement, Prime Minister Modi said that his visit to Maldives and Sri Lanka reflects the importance of India, which attaches neighbourhood-first policy, and that it will further cement bilateral ties with the two maritime countries. Ahead of his visit, the President of Maldives announced to confer highest honour accorded to the foreign dignitaries on the Indian Prime Minister. I beg your pardon, on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Prime Minister will first travel to Maldives in his first bilateral visit after retaining power in the Lok Sabha polls. From Maldives, he will go to Sri Lanka on Sunday. My colleague Akhilesh Suman brings us this detailed report.
In the first foreign visit of his second term, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Maldives and Sri Lanka. Ahead of his visit, Prime Minister Modi tweeted, saying the visits indicate the importance India attaches to the policy of neighbourhood first. Thanking Maldivian President Soli for inviting him, PM Modi said India views Maldives as a valued partner. He also expressed solidarity with the people of Sri Lanka who witnessed the horrific terror attacks on Easter Sunday. He said that India fully supports Sri Lanka in the fight against terror. In the first leg, Prime Minister Modi will hold summit-level meeting with Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Soli. The two leaders are expected to discuss issues of mutual importance, with terror and global warming high on agenda. Prime Minister Modi will also address Maldives Parliament, known as People's Majlis, and meet former President Mohamed Nasheed. He will also inaugurate a coastal surveillance radar system and a composite training center for the Maldives Defence Forces built with India's assistance.
Delegation level talks, signing of agreements. There would also be the joint inauguration by remote link of the composite training facility of Maldivian National Defence Forces, as well as the coastal radar surveillance system which India is implementing under an Indian grant. This will be followed by some key agreements across several areas, including customs cooperation, connectivity issues like ferry service, some defense agreements, some capacity building agreements. After that, Prime Minister will address the newly constituted Majlis.
Prime Minister Modi will reach Sri Lankan capital Colombo on Sunday. There, he will hold summit meeting with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and hold talks with President Maithripala Sirisena. The talks are expected to focus on combating terrorism and development issues. He is also scheduled to address a gathering of Indians living in Sri Lanka.
Have talks with President Sirisena, with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. He will meet the leader of the opposition, Mahinda Rajapaksa, and he will also have meetings with Mr. Sambandhan, who heads the TNA, the Tamil parties. And obviously, although the visit will be short, there will be a review of the relationship and identification of how we move ahead.
During the visit, India is expected to sign key agreements with both Maldives and Sri Lanka to boost ties. Both Maldives and Sri Lanka are immensely important to India's strategic needs in the Indo-Pacific. The economies of both nations are also closely linked to India.
There was a time when people used to say that China is trying to encircle India with rings of pearls of adversaries. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi is trying to reverse it with creating rings of pearls of friends. Any country's security is not just dependent on securing its border, but also creating friendship with the neighboring countries. And that is why Prime Minister Narendra Modi has chosen to come to Maldives and Sri Lanka in his first visit in the second tenure. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person DK Pandey in Maldives.
And for more on this, we'll go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who is joining us from Malé. Akhilesh, in the morning when we spoke to you, we spoke about the agenda of on the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Malé and, of course, the area of common interest between India and Maldives. Now, as per the latest news, what we are getting to learn is that President of Maldives has announced to confer the highest honour accorded to the foreign dignitaries on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What is the significance of this award? How important is this award? Due to some technical glitch, we are unable to connect to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who is there in Malé and giving us all the minutes on that visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Maldives. So remember that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin his visit to Maldives and Sri Lanka today, and this will be his first visit abroad since assuming office for a second term. In a pre-departure statement, Prime Minister had said that his visit to the Maldives and Sri Lanka reflects the importance what India attaches to the neighbourhood first policy, and that it will further cement bilateral ties with the two maritime countries. Ahead of the visit, the President of Maldives has announced to confer the highest honour accorded to foreign dignitaries on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So we have got our connection back with Akhilesh. Akhilesh, what we have got to understand at the moment that President of Maldives has announced to confer the highest honour accorded to any foreign dignitary. Tell us the significance and the importance of this honour.
This is very significant given the fact that India and Maldives had gone very rough patches the last many years, and after the election of new president of Maldives, the relationship has come on track. But what is most important in this award is that it is the highest award given to any foreign dignitary by Maldives, and by according this award, Maldivian government has given a message all across the world that how Maldives respects India, respects Indian government, and respects Indian people. And that the new president of Maldives, Mr. Soli, has announced the policy of India First. That is called India First policy, though it was in Mr. Yamin's regime also, but he violated this confidence between the two countries and he went elsewhere. So, Mr. Soli again has reiterated that we will adopt the India First policy, and when Prime Minister Narendra Modi has chosen Maldives as his first destination after coming to power for the second term, I think it was a very confidence-making measure from Indian side that yes, how importance we give to Maldives. Maldives being a tiny nation in Indian Ocean, it is very important both for India and also for the world. Because it is in the blue sea, it is in the high sea, and also it is strategically located in the sea, and that having a good governance in Maldives is very important in terms of combating terrorism, in terms of regulating the going from this side to that side, and also pirates, sea pirates. Other than that, Maldives is strategically located so that that economic importance of Maldives is also very important. There are 1,200 almost islands in Maldives, and that is important for any Indo-Pacific activities in this region. So I think after President Soli has announced highest award given to the foreign dignitary, he has shown utmost confidence in India, and I think it is very significant.
Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for joining us and giving us all those details from there in Male. So remember what Akhilesh was telling us, that confidence-building measure and strategic importance, and diplomatically, Maldives and India's ties are significant and important. And remember, as a part of the neighbourhood first policy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on a visit to Maldives. And diplomatically also, the country holds a lot of significance because of the maritime boundaries which are there, and of course to combat terrorism. The bilateral talks with Maldives are essential, and remember, President of Maldives has announced to confer the highest honour accorded to foreign dignitaries on the Indian Prime Minister. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is it is the first abroad visit, foreign visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi after assuming office for a second term. And of course, as mentioned clearly, that neighbourhood first policy is what is being emphasized upon by India. Now, Prime Minister will first travel to Maldives, and in his bilateral visit, after retaining power in Lok Sabha polls, this will be his first foreign visit. From Maldives, the Prime Minister will travel to Sri Lanka. And on the Sri Lanka's visit, Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka, I am joined by my correspondent KM Sharma, who is there in Sri Lanka. Prime Minister will be in Sri Lanka on Sunday. Let's talk about the agenda of the visit. Tell us, what is the agenda of Prime Minister's visit to Sri Lanka?
Yes, I said this is a Prime Minister in Colombo. And the bilateral ties in the personal is getting on there. They are also trying for different that has gone out there the traffic advice. And
Due to some technical issue again, we are unable to understand clearly what KM Sharma was trying to tell us. But remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will reach Sri Lanka tomorrow as a part of bilateral relations and neighbourhood first policy, and a plethora of issues will be discussed between the two countries. Moving on, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is on a two-day visit to Bhutan. Jaishankar, who arrived in Bhutan on Friday, met the country's top leadership. During his meeting with Bhutanese Prime Minister Lotay Tshering, discussions were held on important elements of the bilateral ties, with emphasis on development, partnership and cooperation in hydropower sector. The External Affairs Minister also conveyed to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's greetings during his talks with Prime Minister Tshering. Earlier, Jaishankar held talks with his Bhutanese counterpart, Tandi Dorji, and discussed issues of mutual interest. This is S. Jaishankar's first overseas trip after assuming charge of the Ministry of External Affairs. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has attended the two-day meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors in Japan beginning today. The meeting is likely to focus on risks and challenges being faced by the global economy, investment in infrastructure and international taxation. The deliberations at the meeting would be followed by the G20 Leaders Summit scheduled at Osaka later this month. And Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal will lead the Indian delegation for the two-day G20 ministerial meeting on trade and digital economy at Japan's Tsukuba city today. Global trade, WTO matters and digital trade will be the key agendas to be discussed at the meeting. Goyal will also hold dialogues with other participating trade ministers on current international trade and investment. The newly set up Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs met on Friday ahead of the first session of the new Lok Sabha. The committee met at the residence of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Home Minister Amit Shah was among the ministers who attended the meeting, which comes days before the Parliament session beginning on June 17. The decision on the pro tem Speaker, election of Speaker and presentation of the Union Budget were some of the important issues the committee discussed yesterday. Central government has sought inputs from citizens on Union Budget 2019-20 with a view to making the budget-making exercise more participative and inclusive. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present the budget on 5th of July. The comments have been sought on government's portal mygov.in by 20th of this month. According to the portal, the Ministry of Finance sought inputs from citizens, saying that this has been a practice for the last several years. It said citizens from all walks of life are welcome to be a part of this democratic exercise. The first session of the newly elected 17th Lok Sabha will be held from 17th of June to 26th of July. Reserve Bank weekly data released on Friday showed country's foreign exchange reserves has increased by $1.875 billion to $421.867 billion. In the week ending May 31st. In the previous week, the reserves had risen by $1.99 billion to $419.99 billion. In the reporting week, foreign currency assets, which is a major component of the overall reserves, rose by $1.946 billion to $394.134 billion. Ahead of the World Yoga Day on 21st of June, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said practicing Ardha Chakrasana is helpful and properly gives stronger back, better blood circulation and more. The Prime Minister also posted a short 3D video of him practicing Ardha Chakrasana on social media. Take a look.
अर्ध चक्रासन। इस आसन को करते समय आपके शरीर की स्थिति आधे चक्र जैसी यानी पहिए के समान गोलाकार में आ जाती है। इस आसन को करने के लिए सबसे पहले सीधे खड़े हो जाएं और अपने दोनों हाथों से अपनी कमर को सहारा दें। ध्यान रखें कि आपकी सभी उंगलियां जुड़ी हुई हों ताकि आपकी कमर को अच्छे से उसकी पकड़ मिल सके। अब एक गहरी सांस लेते हुए धीरे धीरे अपने सर को पीछे की ओर झुकाएं। सर को इतना झुकाएं कि आपको आपकी गर्दन की मांसपेशियों पर खिंचाव महसूस हो। सामान्य रूप से सांस लें और छोड़ें। इस स्थिति में 10 से 30 सेकंड तक विश्राम करें। अर्ध चक्रासन आपकी रीढ़ को लचीला बनाता है, मेरु तंत्रिकाओं यानी स्पाइनल नर्व्स को मजबूती प्रदान करता है। ये आसन सांस लेने की क्षमता को बेहतर बनाता है और सर्वाइकल स्पॉन्डिलाइटिस यानी गर्दन के दर्द में भी आराम देता है। पर याद रहे, इस आसन को करते समय उच्च रक्तचाप यानी हाइपरटेंशन या हाई बीपी के रोगियों को सावधानी से झुकना चाहिए। यदि आपको चक्कर आते हों तो कृपया यह आसन ना करें। 10 से 30 सेकंड तक इस स्थिति में रहने के बाद अब एक गहरी सांस भीतर लें और धीरे धीरे अपनी कमर को सहारा देते हुए अपनी रीढ़ की हड्डी को वापस सीधा करें। उसके बाद सर को सामान्य स्थिति में वापस लाते हुए धीरे धीरे सांस छोड़ें और विश्राम करें। इस आसन को नियमित रूप से करने पर आप पीठ और गर्दन दर्द जैसी परेशानियों से हमेशा के लिए छुटकारा पा सकते हैं।
More news. The new Council of Ministers of Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy Cabinet took oath in Amravati today. Reddy assumed charge of office at the State Secretariat and party leader SCV Naidu was appointed pro tem speaker. Jagan Mohan Reddy led Andhra state government now has a record number of 5 deputy chief ministers and a full 25-member cabinet. The swearing in of the 5 deputies is in accordance with YSR Congress's election manifesto, which made various promises for the welfare and development of the 5 communities, which constitute about 70% of the state's population. The deputy chief ministers will represent scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward classes, minorities, and the Kapu communities. The state cabinet would be reconstituted 2.5 years later after a mid-term review of the government's performance. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has expressed concern over the tendency of opposition members defecting to the ruling party. Observing that such acts were making a mockery of democracy, he said people interested in strengthening democracy's foundation must seriously ponder over the issue. Speaking at the Hyderabad Management Association's 46th annual awards function, the Vice President expressed anguish over diminishing values and morals in public life, saying that the frequent disruptions caused by political parties in Parliament were reducing the bias. He opined that the unfortunate tendency was a clear negation of the vision of our constitutional makers. The Vice President observed that having a stable government at the centre provides an opportunity to ensure that the growth was maintained.
It is a matter of concern that political discourse is reaching new low in the recent years. We have seen the elections. We should reverse this trend at the earliest. A credible opposition is an essential prop of a healthy democracy. Criticize, nothing wrong. Accuse, nothing wrong, but don't abuse. Accusation is different from abusing people. We must also understand political parties The candidates, winners or the losers, they are only rivals. They are not enemies. We are all Indians. Each one has some ideology. Some may not have ideology. And we may be competitors. At the end of the day, everybody's aim is to serve the country, to improve the lot of the people. So that being the case, we must respect each other. You may win now, or you may lose now, but you must respect the mandate of the people.
Weather news now. After a delay of a week, monsoon hit the Kerala coast today, marking the official commencement of the 4-month rainfall season in the country. Several parts of Kerala have started receiving a good amount of rainfall. The Kerala State Disaster Management Authority has issued red and orange alerts in different parts of the state from June 9th to 11th. A red alert has been issued in Thrissur district on June 10th and in Ernakulam, Malappuram and Kozhikode districts on June 11th. An orange alert has been issued in state capital Thiruvananthapuram, Kollam, among others, on June 9th and 10th. Meanwhile, the IMD has said that heatwave conditions are likely to continue in north and central India next week. The Meteorological Department has predicted a severe heatwave in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Vidarbha in Maharashtra from Saturday till Tuesday. There is a likelihood of similar temperature to continue, especially after the subdued rainfall over major parts of India. And now the news from the ICC Cricket World Cup. Pakistan and Sri Lanka were forced to split the 2 points after their match was called off due to heavy rain in Bristol. Both teams now have 3 points with 1 win and 1 loss each. As a result, both Pakistan and Sri Lanka jumped to the top 4 in the World Cup points table. In today's matches, Bangladesh will take on England in Cardiff. The match will begin at 3 p.m. Indian time. And in the second match of the day, Afghanistan will take on New Zealand at Taunton beginning at 6 p.m. Indian time. And in the French Open, the women's singles final will be played today. Australia's Ashley Barty and Czech player Marketa Vondrousova have set up a women's final clash to be played at Roland Garros today. Barty can become Australia's first French Open champion since Margarita Court in 1973 if she overcomes 19-year-old Vondrousova, who has not lost a single set en route to her first major final. And in the men's category, clay champion Rafael Nadal has entered the final of the French Open. Nadal beat Roger Federer in straight sets on Friday to book a place in the final. Nadal, who is now only a step away from his 12th French Open title, will either play Novak Djokovic or Dominic Thiem in the Sunday's final. The second semi-final between Djokovic and Thiem will be played today. And that's all we have for you in this edition. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.